Hello and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. I'm Scott Bassett, and today I want to talk about how to talk to a narcissist. That's like how to rub a nail file on your cornea. No, sorry for that visual, but it's an unpleasant experience. It's a necessary experience because even if you don't live with a narcissist or know a narcissist, you're going to run into one and you're going to say, hey, why does it hurt so much to talk to this person? So it's something you're going to come across, so you might as well know something about it. And before I go into it, I want to say, well, it's best to know you're talking to a narcissist before you do. But that's not always possible. Sometimes you just have to pick up on it. And that just takes experience. I don't always notice when somebody's a narcissist. They essentially fool me for a time, sometimes. A lot of times I feel like they don't. But I have to assume that a lot of them fool me. And then I realize, hey, I'm talking to this person who's extremely unpleasant. Sometimes a narcissist doesn't care about you, and so they don't focus on you because you're not, their primary supply. And so you're not a big deal, and you don't have to deal with it as much. But sometimes all of a sudden you become a target, and you could become a target at any time depending on what their emotional state is. And there's going to be an issue. They're going to create problems for you in some way. Narcissists tend to talk in two ways. There's the really superficial touch and go type stuff where they're kind of jabbing at you and trying to see what you're going to respond to and what your deal is, so that you get upset and then they can go, hey, why did that bother you? What's wrong? Does that mean something to you? It's usually very personal. They make it as personal as they can. But they have to, everything's judged on your reaction because they have a lot of emotions, but they don't really understand emotions, and they don't understand how you're feeling. They don't. It looks like they do. Sometimes it looks like they're reading your mind. It's kind of a trick. They don't know what you're going through. They simply judge by your response. They're pretty good at reading your response, but they're not great at it. That's why you can fool them by having a fake response. Maybe that's a topic for a different video. I would say when you're talking to a narcissist, it's like touching the surface of a pool of water like bath water as fast as you can without getting wet and without looking like you're trying very hard. That was a bizarre metaphor, but I think that's how I feel about it. You don't want to be committed to anything. You don't want to care about anything. You want to be pretty laid back and have a very superficial nature about you. Nothing wrong with that. And even to the point where if they get in your face and tell you something that's just ultimately offensive, horrendously offensive, you're kind of just like, it just rolls off your shoulders. You can acknowledge it, but be impersonal about it. That's the default, I would say, when dealing with a narcissist. You don't want to put your foot down on anything and step somewhere that then later you regret, because everything's a pile of dog poo, essentially, when you're talking to a narcissist. It's going to be a mess. Their real power is the disarray that you feel in your heart and the questioning and doubting yourself when they talk to you. It's an aura. You're just going to feel it in the room. That's okay. You feel like that's going to end you, or you're going to screw up, and then you're not yourself anymore, and your identity goes down the toilet, and you're nobody important. You're going to feel awful, but over time you get used to that feeling and you stop caring, because it doesn't matter. You still feel it, and it's really bad. I feel it. But you simply proceed and do what I'm telling you, because this is a person who's got severe issues, and when you see somebody on the street or whatever who's schizophrenic and not doing well, you feel bad for them, but you don't get super worked up over anything they say because you know they're probably crazy. A narcissist is essentially like that person, but they look like, hey, I'm normal, or I'm better than normal. I'm great. I'm better than you. But you have to treat them the same way. You don't say that to them ever. You don't tell them what I'm telling you, but you have to take it lightly. You take a narcissist seriously, you acknowledge that they are dangerous, and you try to be aware of the dangers because they're unstable. But you also don't take what they're saying seriously. Yes, they'll hurt you and everything, but they're also full of nonsense. And so you're often just entertaining them when you talk to them. You're often just letting them bounce off of you, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want you to be committed to anything. They're going to want you to commit to something and get worked up, and you can, over something you don't care about, you can fake them out. But there is literally, no matter how upset you get, to get worked up over really anything that they're saying, except under the most extreme circumstances where you have to react harshly, where they're threatening to take away money or do something right there. Even then, you generally don't want to get super upset in a genuine way. You don't want to do that. There's a few ways a narcissist talks. It's all deceptive. It's all to get something from you, to get something for themselves, some sort of reassurance, some sort of pain or bleeding on your part that then empowers them. But there's only a few ways they do it, and there's one particular way I like to handle it. So let's first talk about how they usually talk. In the lighthearted sense, when they're talking about nothing, they typically control the conversation and talk about themselves. That's the traditional way they're gonna handle everything. They're gonna talk about me, 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 and they want you to talk about them, and that's fine too. That's not a bad thing to talk about narcissists. If I'm talking to a narcissist, okay, and we're talking about narcissists, I don't mind talking about whatever they want in their presence, because that's easier typically than having to argue with them, which is going to get real emotionally heavy and painful at the very least, or talking about me. So they typically want to talk about themselves, or they start talking about you. There's only one reason they talk about you, and that's to get info that they can hurt you with. They don't care about you. They have zero interest in what you're doing except for what they can use to control you, period. And so, that being the case, that being the reality, my typical approach to that is to talk in a way about things that are somewhat meaningful to me, but superficial like them. Not necessarily bragging about myself, but going on in a meandering sense, a meandering sort of way on pointless stuff that might be of interest to me, just might be my daily routine or whatever, and fits into sort of their narrative of what? What am I trying to say? Almost like you're competing with them. They don't want you to talk about yourself. They don't. It's not even that they don't care. It's that it hurts them to not be addressing themselves. And so they'll typically control the conversation really hard and in just an abrupt, aggressive way, so that you don't do it. They constantly cut you off. It's very difficult to talk about them. So what they like to do is to get you talking about something you want to talk about and then cut you off and move in a completely, tangential, a tangent or a kind of they'll go perpendicular. They want to, whatever they can do to throw you off balance, to surprise you, or just to not talk about what you want to talk about. In particular, when it empowers you or makes you look good, or even better than them, you have some sort of moral advantage over them. That's a no-no. But talking to a narcissist, you're talking about them, you're talking about yourself, and they're controlling you like I just described, which is my preferred way to handle it, and not bring up what they're doing. Always plead ignorance on that. You don't know what they're doing, even though you do. That's the game with a narcissist. And generally, that's how you have to handle it. The last thing they do, the last way they talk to you, and I wish I had more time to handle this, but I don't, at least not in this video, is when they're attacking you. And for the most part, I don't think you need special maneuvers for when they're attacking you. You can talk to them and respond the same way as any other thing. You can take it lighthearted. You can kind of show concern and acknowledge what they're saying, that it's bothering you as well, but you don't need to break down at that point. Obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but you're going to have to give them something because they want some kind of emotional release. That's what they are. Narcissists are balloons that fill up with bad feelings, and they have to get the bad feelings out by having a blow up. The balloon can blow up, or it can, you can open the end and it can deflate. That's what I'm trying to do generally, give them some sort of outlet. But having to balance that with them just attacking you or making demands and freaking out, which they're going to do to some degree, but you try to limit that. You have an emotional support of them. You're not calling them a narcissist. You're acting reasonable, but you're not giving them, you're not really giving them yourself ever, right? Because they'll tear it apart. So you don't need to do that. It's a fake person that you're being in this circumstance, in this situation that they've created. So they've created the situation. So you've got to present your fake self. You can have concern. You address what they're talking about. Sorry, I hit the mic. But you don't need to get worked up. You don't need to break down in tears like they want. That's a separate technique that I've used where you can get really upset and start kind of faking a whole overreacting thing because that helps them a lot, makes them feel a lot better. But I don't like to teach that as a general rule because it probably works on some narcissists better than others, and you kind of have to get a feel for that if you're willing to do that kind of thing, if you're capable of doing that kind of thing effectively. And so in this scenario, I think you want to address them in the same lighthearted way, but you're going to have to make compromises because they're going to make demands. You can argue with them to some degree and show how they're wrong, which they will be. They'll be a barrel of contradictions. But you don't have to go along with their game and get upset. And you don't have to call them out in a direct way. A lot of people do that. I don't teach that as a general rule either, which is, I know what you're doing. This is abuse and all that kind of stuff. That has its place. I don't teach that as a default because it has a bunch of hang-ups and problems. A lot of people shouldn't do that given their situation. It can make the narcissist worse, can make the narcissist dangerous, and a lot of people aren't in a position to handle that or get away. But that's also an avenue, but maybe to explore in a different video. So this was a long rambling video like most of my videos. I hope you liked it. I hope you like the video and share it with somebody you think might help. And I will see you in the next one. So you have a wonderful day. Bye.